there is a lot of wisdom in ancient India and across the world, and the problems are getting very complex. So, are we trying to negotiate between using ancient wisdom or modern technologies, or why not both together? And this panel is about using ancient technology and wisdom, augmenting or empowering it using modern technologies. And as the speakers were introduced, we have a wonderful panel here with Professor Vishal, Professor Chandramani, and Arya. So they're all stakeholders in this progression, and they would like to share their experience. So how I would like to keep it engaging is, just for the panel, if you could give a real example for the questions that we're going to post, and keep it focused so that we have an end to the solution and move on to the next question. I know you have a lot to share, but just because of the time constraints, we'll keep it very short but very brief on the point, and a real example so that it keeps the people engaging. So first, to Professor Subramaniam, there's a lot of academic work that has been done in these ivory towers, IIT Bombay's and every big institutions. However, stakeholders are either not using it or not comfortable coming and sharing their problems and negotiating what is to do and how to do it. So, what is your take? For example, one quick example I would give, as I said, is weather predictions are very important for farmers. Especially rural farmers. In those days, ancient wisdom was so good that they could see the skies or ant hills and farming and know when the soil moisture is ready or not. But now we are using satellites, IoTs, and all. But still, how can we use universities to be better translating these results into scalable solutions for farmers using modern and Indian knowledge systems? Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, thanks to Jesh and GEV, this entire event, for having me here and for providing this wonderful platform. Again, coming quickly, directly to your question. I see a disconnect between the what people consider as, if you want to call it in a startup founder's language, as the valley of death, something which is done in a lab scale or in a research, as a research in an academic institute. Why is it not that we are seeing the end of it as a translatable technology, either for an industrial relevance or for use for a local society? The answer is because I think it's the I would say the fault or the deficiency lies in both the sides. From the academic perspective, I would say, because I come from that from an academic background, I would squarely put the blame on myself and say that when we try to create, think of problems that we want to solve through science and technology and research, we most often go to what are called this literature survey. That is, in fact, the first thing that a PhD student does when he or she just gets into the PhD program. Prof goes and tells, do a literature survey on this. What does the literature survey do? It tells you what is the work that is being done, again in a scientific lab. What way science can contribute or what way technology can contribute to that solution. But somebody, I think Professor C.V. Raman, in his book My Journey into Light, has given this beautiful statement that India is such a beautiful country that you just have to walk on the streets to find problems. No research problem, in as far as I could see. Things are changing right now. I don't want to be too negative about it, but a large part of the research problem, what gets in the lab, what gets initiated in the lab, is are problems coming from paper and not problems that we see around ourselves in the society. That, I think, is a kind of that part of the disconnect is something which is very important to bridge, and that. If we are able to do that, because I'll tell you, when I came to IIT Bombay, just a very quick 2 minutes I'll take. When I came down to IIT Bombay, I spent about 6 years in Japan. So I said, okay, I'm going to do something for the society. That part of my intent was always clear to me, that I want to do something for the local community. So I said, okay, that was the time when the government had also introduced the soil health cards, where farmers can put in the nutrition value so that it becomes a database and things. So I said, quickly jumped into the wagon and said, okay, I'm going to build a soil sensor. And then I did the sensor worked beautifully. We tested it real time, everything. Then we went and started approaching farmers in Pune. There is an aggregator, and all these farmers in Pune said, "Can you not put it? It will be of great use to you." So the farmer gave me a beautiful eye-opening answer. He just took the soil in his hand, the topsoil, said, I don't need to water it, or I need to put how much water. I can feel it from my hand. I don't need a sensor. I don't need a technology to tell me that. So what was I doing for the first 2 years of my life, trying to develop something which doesn't have a solution, which doesn't require a solution? Because the farmer is, like you said, he can look at the sky and he can look at the soil and tell us what will happen in the next 1 month. So I think that disconnect, we'll have to really talk when we. So that was a very good kind of a learning opportunity for me. So when I try to devise a problem, at least not 100% of my problems, but at least 20-30% of the problems that we try to do are coming from field trips. I made it a point that we go to the field, interact with the people who have difficulty, then try to find out a problem statement from that, which from my capability and expertise can develop a solution. And that's what we've been trying to do. I think if that, I'm saying that from a faculty perspective, 100% of research cannot go in this way, but at least 20-30%, 40%, if that extra effort can be put, then it'll be much more easy to translate. Yeah.
Point that we are, especially in the labs, we are disconnected to the real problem. And just before the session, Prabhuji has invited all the faculties to come and explore the problem statements. Our vision is different, their vision is different, but the problem is same. So this would lead to better connections. Thanks a lot. The next question is to Arya. Miss Arya, first, congrats on becoming. You just finished your exams, I heard, 11th. So by now, by half-yearly terms, when we finished exams, at least in my age, I was playing cricket in Chennai, not worrying about climate, etc., etc. But it's very fascinating to see at a young age you are an environmental crusader and working on these changes. But most of the youth are not like that, correct? So what do you think is needed to bring them back to the cultural roots? And do you think these cultural roots could engage them or augment them to think about these solutions to environment and climate, etc.? Because let's say, I was just giving this example to you and others. When I was a kid, one TV, one remote channel, we asked to fight, and that is it. But now everyone has their own mobiles, everyone has their own laptops where they watch different shows. So basically, the energy consumption is high, everything is high. So the demand and want is more, like how Prabhuji was saying, the want and what is needed. So what is your take on this? Because you've been very active in this field, but most of the other kids are still enjoying and on consuming more. Please share your thoughts.
So thank you for your question. Firstly, I wanted to share that ever since I started writing and illustrating on heritage and environment, which is mostly the topics that I write my books on. So at that time, I always had this charter in my mind that our cultural values and our heritage, there's not just stone buildings. They are our identity. They show us who we are and from where we belong and where our feet stand first. And connecting to that, I have always felt that sustainability is not just, like a transient, it's not just something that is like a trend these days. It has been a part of our tradition since so long. If we take an example, since the ancient times, we all used to worship Agni, Jal, Prithvi, Vayu, Devta. So basically, what I'm trying to share to the youth of my age is that India has always practiced traditions and lived traditions through sustainability. So, and indigenous tribes and ancient people from our ancient past, people from generations way, before ours, they have been always interconnecting the force of nature with our heritage, which is why I write on these topics. So that is how I have always felt like sharing, that when the youth explore more stories from their grandparents or explore stories from indigenous tribes of their areas or explore folk songs or even, nature-based rituals or, delve deeper into their own cultural values, they will see that their culture is their own identity, which has these days made their sustainability their identity, because practicing these traditions and being a part of this culture has made a really deep way for us to connect through with the nature and practice sustainable living. So this is how I always try to connect with the youth. Another point I wanted to share is that I personally, as a youth, always feel that climate change and mental health is interconnected with one another, especially for the youth, but it's not talked about often together. And I feel that the youth of today, we all consume a lot. We're living in a really fast pace, and I feel that we consume a lot. We don't have restraint. We have excess consumption, excess power, excess speed. And I feel that if we have this inner balance and inner peace within ourselves, within our own mind, only then will we be able to implement it outwards towards actually finding outer peace and coming together to have this shared responsibility to practice sustainable living. So, like, if we have inner peace and balance from within, only then we'll be able to have it outside. So, that is the message, like, I try to share to youth of my age. So, yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot for the wonderful points. Especially, I think you've been blessed to have someone telling about the heritage, sharing about these stories, your grandparents. I think I saw your parents here in the meeting with you. So this disconnect is also there. Not many people go back to the villages or talk to the grandparents, but this is wonderful points that connecting back to the roots is through these stories, through these elders that can share these stories and whatever transactions happen. So while introducing this topic, I also wanted to tell, because next person is Vishal, he has lots of examples to show. One thing that we all are fantasized is about solutions from abroad, solutions from other countries that are very flavorful but may not be suitable for us. Most of us have worked our careers or education abroad, and then we came to India, so we know how the flavor is and how it is changing. For example, when water is an issue, what people say, okay, let's build a dam like China, let's build a dam like the US. But how many of us know that the oldest working water structure is still the oldest in the world, is still working in good condition in Tamil Nadu? These were built in the king's time, the Rajaraja Cholan time. So these things are not told as stories and mythology and shared through grandparents. And these are all tied to a particular custom, like, for example, rituals, spiritual, or it could be religious. But these are not done now. So the wonderful points that has been raised by Ms. Arya. Now coming to Professor Vishal, I think he has been the Jaggery man, single-handedly trying to revive the Jaggery interest in India. I've been very fortunate to see his experiences and growth. So, what do you think? I think one panelist was there. Okay. So, what do you think about traditional wisdom and modern technology? Because traditionally, you've been advocating for going back to traditional roots of using Jaggery, not the white sugar and other things. But then you're using a modern technology. You're not using, thanks, he let me into his lab. So I could see that you're using very, very modern technologies, which our ancient traditional wisdom was not capable of having. So how do you marry both of them, and how did this come out? And where do you put the balance? Is it modern first, then tradition, or tradition first? Because the way you arrange it will dominate the path of the discovery. Thanks.
Agreed. Thanks, Pennan, for such an enlightening question. And thank you very much to organizers for inviting me. So it was a quite fascinating journey to develop this Jaggery technology. Now, the thing is, see, Jaggery is a thing of past. Okay, our ancestors, they were consuming it for generations together. And the Industrial Revolution, particularly British people in 1905, first organized white sugar refinery or white sugar mill, actually was established in Pratappur, UP. So this has completely changed the paradigm. Now, if I compare that kind of introduction of white sugar, it is equivalent to what we can say today is basically climate change. The climate change is doing something for environment externally, for the world where catastrophes are happening. The latest one is that polar bear picture, which is circulated, or this unseasonal rains and all these floods. The same way, this white refined sugar, like GHG gases, has actually done for our metabolism. See, the world, the climate was in equilibrium for thousands or millions of years. And there were predictable rains, there were predictable monsoon, there were cycles of nature which were going well in harmony. What human did? It introduced something which was disproportionately introduced in 50, 60 years. And we saw the catastrophe. The same thing happened with the white refined sugar. Now, white refined sugar is an empty calorie. And what our body need is minerals, nutrients, which are there in all our raw foods. I'm not only sugar I'm talking here. I'm representing variety of things. Like people nowadays say sugar is sugar, jaggery or sugar. What is the difference? But in reality, when you experience the product, the same way is our maida versus whole wheat atta or cold press oil. So there is a merit in that. Now our ancestors or our ancient wisdom was built on experiments. They tried variety of things for generations together and they said, this fits, this you should eat on this day, this you should eat on Ekadashi, variety of things. And you will find an example where fasting, 2016, there's a Nobel Prize for fasting. The Nobel Prize for studying something scientifically, how fasting helps in, better regeneration. We are doing it for thousands of years. So what I feel is our ancient wisdom had some merit. See, everything has a merit, I don't know. But majority of thing has a merit. As a job, as a scientist, we need to bring that in today's world and see in a modern times how that ancient wisdom makes sense by variety of things. Since you talked about my plant. Now, the jaggery processing was quite a discretion-based process. There was no intervention in that. There is a process expert called Gudwaya who does mumbo jumbo on the sugarcane juice, add something and produces jaggery. Now, this was a knowledge which was residing with the communities of Gudwaya, which has actually vanished when the sugar was introduced. Now, the Gudwayas in last 50, 60 years, 30 years, they were just knowing the practice of what chemicals used in sugar industry, they are using in jaggery industry. So what essentially we did is using modern science, using modern control, using modern heat and mass transfer, acquired that knowledge, embedded that knowledge in computer so that anybody can make jaggery. There is no discretion. There is a set of rules. There is a SOP. You keep on making consistent jaggery with the same traditional knowledge of okra, sap and lime. Just only 2 ingredients. I think that is where we need to utilize the modern science or emerging technology to bring back our ancient wisdom so that our future generations will not be deprived for our ancient knowledge.
Thanks, Professor Vishal. I think one thing you did mention that many of these ancient wisdom may or may not be right, as you said. So whose impetus is it? Like, is it us as scientists, us as academic advisors? Should we dig into that and look at more science so that it connects better with the modern technology? Or do we blindly go in and then ask modern technology to adopt it? Just a follow-up question, quick question.
Quick one is like Professor Subramaniam said, we have to go to field.
Right.
We have to really understand, like that's what our Sitara philosophy is. So for everybody's benefit, the Sitara, the name is Center for Technology Alternatives for Rural Areas. Now, what is mean by that? It's a very thoughtful name. Center for Technology Alternatives. See, as a scientist, our job is to create alternatives. Finally, you have to choose. My job is to create the best jaggery as an alternative to white refined sugar. Now, it is your choice, your will, your wish to use it or not. The same manner as a scientist, we should go back. Everybody has a different cultural background, different connect with a variety of people. So whatever we find, we should test it on the science side and see to it that whether it makes sense. Can I do experiments? Because we are trained
Right.
to understand something methodically under science. And I think as a scientist, we should utilize that knowledge and bring that thing to, to the real world, so that Western people will no more say, kuch mumbo jumbo baat kar raha
Right,
hai."
right.
This is a real science.
Well said. So now the question shifts to Professor Subramaniam, where you've been doing groundbreaking results and work in solar energy. It's a very decentralized approach. It can be centralized, it can be decentralized also. But what do you think? I'm very specific about your work now. So what do you think is needed for villages to adopt this better and not create an inequity in power? Okay, so because only some farmers who have the capital and land can put up a solar panel, whereas others are still relying on the traditional methods or buying from these farmers, which is causing inequity. So here's a solution that you have wonderfully done, but it could cause inequity in the villages. So how do you scale it up and address these issues? Thank you.
Thank you. Before I begin, to answer your question, actually, I just wanted to connect how I've been working on some materials which can convert light to heat, basically solar to thermal technology. So that's what it is. I don't know whether it's like the way you put it as groundbreaking or not, but I happened to read much before, like when I was young, I happened to read this Upanishad called Surya Upanishad, and one of those lines very very beautifully says Suryad apo jayate. That means from sun the sun is a source of all heat. So that's what it says, and that's so it's all hidden and coded in our scriptures, and we are only trying to do research. The word research itself is like we are searching and searching and searching and trying to dig out old stuff and make it into a new form. That's what I would see myself as doing. And so when it comes to this particular solar thermal technology that we are doing, again, this actually we were trying to, of course, go with the flow and try to see what kind of publications are coming out and where we can get a better paper cited, better manuscript published and things like that. That is purely of academic interest. But then this particular Professor Anil Gupta from he was earlier IIM Ahmedabad faculty in IIM Ahmedabad, and he happened to have his own honeybee network. So he happened to meet him, and he took me to this very remote area of Gujarat, which is the Kutch, the salt harvesting area. Almost say 70-80% of the salt that we use in our food stuff comes from this place. And you just have to go there, see it, and believe it for yourself. Otherwise, if I tell you, you won't actually trust me, because the people who actually make our salt live in such inhumane conditions. Their life expectancy, they almost 50% of the once you cross the age of 40 years, you are 100% sure that you will have kidney stones. 100% sure. Absolutely no error bars associated with it. So but that's because they are living in salt. They are living in salt they are drinking the water. The only water that is available to them is the salt water from which they make the salt. So these are things which we can, which we thought we should be able to address through technology. So, and that's what we've been trying to do. Now, again, coming back to this, I don't actually see if you take a very honest comparison of what happens in rural India versus urban India, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that the urban India is far less sustainable than the rural part of India. Farmers who have, if you go to the villages, like even the Govardhan Eco Village, I don't know whether that's the reason why they decided to call it a village, because it's to me that represents the best of living. And if you see that the practices that they have in any village are till today far more sustainable than what we practice in the cities. In terms of, you can name it, in terms of plastic, in terms of energy, and so on. So in one way, I would put them at a much higher pedestal, if not financially, but at least environmentally and morally at a much higher pedestal than what this crazy consumerism has come into and infiltrated our so-called developed metros or cities. So in that perspective, see, one of the bigger the place where we get a false sense of superiority when the cities get a false sense of superiority when it comes to the villages is the time. That is what is, I feel, the biggest barrier or advantage that the cities have. You in a city you can get a 2-minute noodles. When you go to your village, you will have to wait for half an hour, because that is how Indian cooking has always been. Indian cooking has been a slow way of cooking. There is nothing called fast food in our concepts. So this has come out from a very, very call it colonial hangover or whatever, but it is not a concept that the Indian traditional knowledge system has ever talked about. You leave it and you stir it and keep stirring it, and it cooks by itself. That is the way Indian system has evolved. So what you need to do is try to adopt that, and the only difference is you won't get anything in 2 minutes. You can't get a Swiggy order in half an hour. You can't get a Ola cab in 20 minutes. But I think somewhere we have lost our connection to the roots, somewhere in this process of development. So all we need to do is to go, if you want to go sustainable, is go back to our roots. Try to live like what India taught us to live, the culture of India taught us to live. That could be one of the ways that this so-called disparity, I would still not admit that it's a disparity. And if at all there is a disparity, I see that the villages are doing a much better job in clean and healthy living compared to the cities. But then this is what I think we need to kind of revisit. Yeah.
Thank you. So the follow-up question, Ms. Arya, from here is, we've seen a lot of these technology and rural routes discussed now. But in contemporary policy making, new policies and new environmental schemes, new methods, etc., given by the government, where and how do you think, as a Gen Z or a younger generation person, how do you think this indigenous knowledge should be adopted? Okay, so what do you think is needed to push these agenda into the new policies or into the new schemes? Because right now, maybe you are fighting it alone or you're fighting it with your colleagues, but tomorrow you're going to be the voice of India. India is going to be the youngest. It is the youngest nation in the world, right? So you will be dictating the policies. You will be dictating these schemes. How and how do you conceive to bring these roots, the traditional knowledge, into these new schemes and new models?
Yeah. So, as I said before, these Indian indigenous tribes, since the ancient times, they've been practicing sustainable living. So, for them, there wasn't a word sustainable living. They themselves were just practicing it, they were a part of it. And for these indigenous ancient tribes, they didn't used to believe or think that their nature is a resource. They used to consider it as their family, which gave them a really strong connection between their nature and their heritage. For example, these indigenous tribes, they used to, and they still do, consider water as their deity and their protector, which is why in their scarce and rural areas they had created step wells in the past, which is another interconnection of both nature and heritage. And that is how they, through their cultural heritage and through their legacy, they included nature as a part of their legacy, as a part of who they were. And how they made it, they made nature a shared resource, a shared family, as I said, and they made it a shared responsibility to come together and to protect their nature and to practice sustainable living. So I feel that if in the modern times, if we in policies and with the new emerging technologies, if we include the feel or the emotion behind how the indigenous tribes used to connect with their nature, how they used to be one with their nature, if we include the feel or the emotion or the connection they had, then for us, especially our new generation, protecting our environment or practicing sustainable living, it won't feel like a rule or it won't feel forced. It will feel more like a flow, like something we were supposed to or we were born to do in the first place. So if we get the feel behind that, and if we use both of these values as partners instead of opposites, then I feel that it will really help us practice sustainable living in a more natural way from within.
Thank you. So it's actually fascinating to see such strong words coming from your experience. Wonderful work. So coming to Professor Vishal. So now we've discussed about policy. We've discussed about managing the cultural roots. You've set up something that is working with the cultural roots and the technology in your lab. When you're taking it to the field, there are multiple barriers that come. What do you think are the key barriers? Because otherwise, it comes back to the first question I asked Professor Subramaniam, that it all stays in ivory towers. It all stays in your lab, good publication, your career growth is going on the mercy of others. So, what are the major barriers you feel are there, and how did you break it or breaking it? And what do you think the new entrepreneurs or people sitting here who are going to venture into this should take note and learn from it? So, as scientists, we always say not only our success story should be published, but also our failures should be published so that no one else does the same thing. So, in that way, what are the key barriers and how did you overcome it, or what is the methods to overcome it? Thank you.
Good. So, what I feel, and this could be a little bit strong words, is, just to see, I am also in the ivory tower and I am in the real world. Okay. So, I can see the perspective from two angles. One is basically when you are developing something, when you are conquering something, when you are really passionately following something, what is on the stake? That's the most important thing. Have you burnt your bridges? In Marathi, there is a very popular say by Tanaji, when he was going to Sinhagad and want to fight out, he cut the ropes so that we have only two choices, either fight or win or die. So sometimes I feel, I think that level of passion is required. So either you have to put your time on the stake, your own savings, your money, your name, your connections. Unless you do that, the critical push will never happen to what you are doing. Okay, that's the first thing. The another interesting thing in any of these developments which are happening in the real labs or real world is you have to engage with the real stakeholders. Now, real stakeholder engagement is never with a very clearly defined textbook problem. You have to improvise. Given a situation, you have to come up with, and you should be ready to improvise that. You can't go back and say that I will wait. You have to develop those reflexes when you are dealing with the real world. Let me give you a few examples, like this journey of a Jaggery development I was doing. See, I started this work way back in 2007. And as Sitara philosophy says, we have to work with people, you have to work along with them. So my first job was to go and meet people. I was working in that time with corporate, and my passion was to develop this plant. So I used to take out my car on weekends, travel to Kolhapur, Sangli, Satara from Pune, and just meet people. Those days there was no Google. So you have to talk to people. Are किसी के पास अच्छा Jaggery plant है क्या? बोले उससे मिलो. See, one of the challenge when you do rural development, and you well know that people can't articulate what they want. So how you decode that? So it's a quite challenging aspect. So while traveling, I met some gentleman who stayed in Mumbai but shifted to Kolhapur, to Sangli region, and I met him in his village, and he was having one small Jaggery plant. And I said, what kind of plant you need? He said, sir, give me like a washing machine. Now, give me like a washing machine is a metaphor. Now, I could have said, "Yaar, fool, why he is saying washing machine, just forget it." But that simple clue I picked up. Then I met few professors in IDC. I said, boss, this is something people are asking. He said, it's a very interesting problem. Come sit and discuss. Now, this is how the barriers when you are doing any real world development is decoding the needs of the people. It starts with that. Because if you build something in lab and you say, now I want a poor person, whom I would like to give this technology, you will not get that person in your life. We have seen such technologies coming out from our ivory tower, and nobody is accepting that. So I feel understanding people is the starting point, but then there are variety of other barriers in terms of, when you are solving the problem, you will not get enough resources. Now, how you should work with the incomplete information? It is not like your lab, every instrument is available, you can measure everything. You have to take a call, you have to take a judgment, and over and above that, there is an element of people. They will surprise you. The technology will not surprise you. People will suddenly vanish, and particularly in informal sector. So I think there are variety of barriers. What is important or underlying thing is your passion, your perseverance. One thing I learned, you should do sincere effort with people when you are developing a technology, particularly rural technology. They will keep on seeing you. One day they will see that you are a genuine person. Tell me what I can do for you. But you have to wait for that one day and relentlessly, passionately keep on doing what you are doing sincerely.
Thanks. I think you've clarified my question a bit. Pawan, how much time do we have, Pawan? Because we started late, 10 minutes. So I'll add another angle to this question. You have mentioned about barriers in making these innovations. Let's say you've made it. Okay, through all these we are passionate, we work with GV and we got all these done. But now taking it from GV itself or from your lab itself to the village, what are the barriers? I'll throw this to Professor Subramaniam and then come. So this could include maybe some teasers or some hints as we give for our students for the questionnaire. It could be from the government angle. It could be from the people's angle, their adoption, ready to adoption. Like geopolitics, like in one area it'll work, another area it doesn't work. So what do you think are those barriers? Like, you have done the technology, you're very passionate, you've understood the needs from the people, now you're ready. What are the barriers?
See, the barriers, thanks for asking that. So, when it comes to any technology that we are trying to replace, say for example, there are two kinds of technology that we can develop. One is something which is not there. There is no solution, and you come in with a completely new technology and say, okay, this is a solution which can be put on the field, which will help you in this way. Now there is something other part which is an improvement. Like, say for example, somebody is tilling the land with a ox and a plow, and you are telling him, okay, do it in this way with a small small size tractor or something, and then it will make your job easier. So that I would see as an improvement. So both these things, like what my colleague Vishal said, is basically has to be a lot of perseverance. I would also add on to perseverance this concept of conviction. Okay, it's not. Okay. So add a conviction and then perseverance, or vice versa, because conviction has to come from within, and I believe that conviction of what we are doing is right will fuel perseverance. Only if you are convinced fully that this is the idea which is correct, which is implementable, and also makes economic sense at the end of the day. Okay, so that is something which is important when you translate anything to kind of the grassroots levels of the Indian society. The first question that they ask us, is it going to be cheaper? Is it going to be more cost effective than what I'm trying to do now? Because they, unfortunately or unfortunately, we don't see health as a cost. We see, okay, even now the community is still drinking and living with salt water because they feel that the cost of pure water to them is multi-fold compared to the health cost that they get after 50 years. So that understanding, making them understand that kind of a situation is not so simple. It needs a lot of perseverance, and you also need to, and it's also our responsibility to offer them the right kind of solution. There are 100 solutions that could be available, but then what you offer has to be from my responsibility. My stake has to be involved in that, and say that this is one of the best solutions for you. and that also has to be convincing for them. They don't need to know the entire intricate technology of what is going on inside a system. That is not required. But what ultimately they should believe in is you as a person, because we have seen this happen. We go on, like what Vishal said, once we go talk to them, keep talking to them, keep persevering and pushing, they start to believe not in the technology. Ultimately they start to believe in us. So and that connect is extremely important to translate anything to anywhere, irrespective of whether you're looking at industrial translation, commercial translation, or something to the grassroots level society. So that is.
So, very interesting, Professor Subramaniam. So, I will just like to add, as I have missed telling you from the market side, when you want to take your product in the market, customer is not waiting for your product. Customer has a lot of choices available with him. He's living his life. He doesn't need you. But what is required, particularly for small businesses, when you are entering into the market, it is what is value you are creating for people. Now, why value? Because if you are selling commodity at a smaller scale, earth will not be there in your proposition. So the first thing is value. Now, the second thing is that value communicated? Is that value seen? Now, the human psychology is, like Professor Subramanian said just now, the cost. I go further to that, okay? More than a cost, what is a value proposition for me? Just to give you an example, I make jaggery. I don't sell jaggery. So what I sell? I sell value-added products. I sell chocolate jaggery. I sell turmeric jaggery. I sell coffee jaggery. I sell tea jaggery. I sell cold coffee jaggery. Why? Now, the moment I take my jaggery to the market, people say, oh, 50 rupees mein milta hai. 100 rupees mein milta hai. So I get compared with, with something which is, which I can't be. So the point here is, when I say chocolate jaggery, there is no comparison. The comparison is Pediasure, 1800 rupees kg. Mine is 1250 rupees kg. People say, wow, it is cheaper. So the point here is how you communicate the value to the people. The second thing, and it happened very recently. On videos, I have seen some, influencers, so to say, claiming, yeah, there is no difference between sugar and jaggery. You might have seen these videos. People are left, right, center saying, now I did one experiment. Now, this is how the entrepreneurs think. The experiment was, I put up a CGM sensor on my body. Simple. It gives continuous glucose monitoring. Every 3 minutes, I have a data coming to my mobile. So the day second, it was for 15 days. Day second, I drank, or I put a 40 gram of glucose, which is basically 100 glycemic index, in 70 ml water. Drank that at 7:26 in the morning. Look at the graph. Second day, I took white refined sugar. Drink that, and again look at the graph for 3 hours. Then I took jaggery, drink that, and look at the graph. Now, here, if I do it in IIT, I have to take ethical committee, hundreds of permissions, this, that, you can't do this. For me, I can do anything for my body, because this is a need I felt. I did that, and to my surprise, and it is all documented on LinkedIn, I have put the post, go and see that, 76% less blood sugar rise with Sarvaya jaggery. 76. Those who would like to prove this is wrong, take CGM, do your experiment, and comment on my LinkedIn post. So the point here is, this is how you communicate value to your customer. If you find it truthful, person of my stature would like to lie, better luck to you. So what is important is, when you go to the market, truthfulness with understanding the psychology of the customer. It's very, very important. Same thing happens with any rural product you take to the market, that organic product nowadays, cold press oil. Everywhere the story is same. How we make sure that the value is communicated to the people.
Thanks. So with this, I think we're almost time. So I'll take the last question to the next generation, who's going to carry all our burdens and what we did mistakes in all our development studies and stuff. So Like Professor Vishal says, take it to the customer, take it to the stakeholder. Unfortunately, one of the stakeholders' voice which is not heard is the environment and the ecology. You may be giving a product, but it may be by harming the ecology, the environment, the forest, etc. So, for example, when I was working in Nepal 3 years, documenting all the springs, where the recharge happened is kilometers away from the river, kilometers away from the spring. And if you go trace it using isotopes and 20,000 rupees per sample we need to test, we found that it was a small area and it was decorated with religious deities. Because those days people knew this is where the river is originating and that is where I'm going to build a small temple, because otherwise the people are polluting it. Okay, so no one is there to sit there and tell the stories. Either the stories were written in walls of the temples or something, or someone has to be there sitting and telling this is where the river is originating, or a temple was built so that no one was touching it. A temple or deity was kept. So coming back to the last question of all this we understood and taking it back is, so these barriers, one of the barriers that we feel is the people need to understand and they have different solutions. Okay, let's say health and stuff. And I've also heard people saying that, Arey, let me eat this sugar, let me eat this pizza, and then take medicines and live longer. Right? I'll just go to spend extra 100 rupees. If you go to medicines, they'll keep sugar tablets, let's say. It doesn't cure sugar, it just controls it. Right? So you can continue whatever you want and then go through it. So coming back to you, how do you think that the next generation should prepare themselves of not looking at solutions that are not taking in account of the ecology, the environment? For example, if you buy a chocolate in US, you do have options. You can buy a cocoa which is shade grown, which means the cocoa is not grown in a field where the forests are cut. Under the tree, the cocoa plant grows. Okay, so they have to spend more money. Here, what happens is organic food has been a failure because we cannot trace the origins of organic food. So now I'm putting it as a question, not only as a younger generation, but also to think on entrepreneur scales like, can this be a new invention from the younger side that I would be happy to buy a product if I know the origin of the product, if I know how it has not harmed the ecology and environment? Please go ahead.
Yeah, I as the younger generation, I truly feel that the youth, they would feel like being like buying more products which through which we can find the origin of the product of the food or whatever it is, rather than another product. Because as I've taken presentations till now in schools and universities, since the as the years have passed on, I have seen a greater deal of interest for practicing sustainable living amongst the youth. So whether they have been high school students or middle school students or even university level students, I've seen that how they have not just started to practice sustainable living by having less consumption of power, but they've also started using it as a part of their lifestyle, including the food they have or the products they have, because they've realized that it's their future, it's their body, it's themselves, everything at their stake. So increasingly over the years, I've started to see how the youth has increasingly started to have that passion for looking out more, for practicing sustainable living, not just for the future but for themselves as well. So yes, I do feel that way.
Thank you. I think it's a wrap. Yeah, I'll Pawan, do we have time for questions? One question. Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. So we are discussing about rural and the urban. My very interesting finding I would like to share, and maybe panelists can answer this. See, on one hand, we are trying to see that we are, being educated, we are modern, we are sitting in a IIT Mumbai, and then I had been few days, I have been to my hometown, Marathwada, Parbhani, so where I went and I drank water from the river. But when I come to, cities like Mumbai, Pune, or any metro, in any of the country or any in Indian cities, I see there are 3 rivers flowing in Pune, Mula, Mutha, Pona. Not a single river I can go and drink the water. Same case in Mumbai. Now, can any of us go and drink the water of the rivers which are flowing? Can? Mithi River? Can we drink? then where is the loophole? Where is that we are talking about? One side we are talking about, we are going technologically. I am having IIT Mumbai, IIT Bombay, the management institutes and everything. But still the cities, where are we going? I cannot drink the water. And as you rightly said, water is the most important constituent of the health of the planet. So where is that lack? Where is that lack? We need to really go through that. Otherwise, we'll be nowhere. As you rightly said, in villages, we cannot get, Ola, Uber. In city, we get. But same time, I need ambulance also in city. So I call ambulance also because, as I'm taking for that, I have to go to a hospital also immediately. So both coins. So where is that root cause? Where we need to go for that? Because I need water. Now I'm taking water from the villages to Mumbai. That transport everything. But why can't I have the, rivers flowing through the Mumbai or Pune? I can drink the water.
I think it's out of scope of this panel, but I'll give it to them because there is a work going on in GEV, rejuvenation of Pinjal River. Similar concepts. Please, I would recommend in GEV. Please go ahead and look at it because that is a pure technological thing. Here we are talking about ancient knowledge and how to mix it to modern technologies. But either way, if you want to take the question, one of you. I think, it's a development question. We have developed, as my last question to the next generation is, when we developed, we did not care about, none of us, we didn't care about the society, we cared about the stakeholder, but not the environment, the ecology. We pumped water and now we are in this state. So maybe the next generation is more careful. It's good to see that they are thinking about these questions, not us. When we developed, we didn't ask these questions. And that is one of the reasons. Okay, just for time, I would conclude here. I'll just give one or two concluding statements based on the overall discussion of the panel. First, I would like to congratulate all the panelists for sharing their ideas, wisdom, knowledge, experience throughout the years. However little, however large it is, they are very capable of answering these questions. And what came out was very interesting. There is a big disconnect in even understanding the problem. So even before you bring the ancient technology or the modern technology and merging it together, first we need to connect with the problem by connecting to the stakeholder, which is missing. And most of the research is done in ivory towers in isolated rooms. They are not talking to the ground or even testing it on the ground, which came out very, very passionately in this panel. And one more thing that came out is there's a lot of barriers. There's a lot of interest among the younger generation, but barriers exist. The barriers exist because they are not passionate, they are not understanding, and they're not listening. So we should not be taking sides here, saying that who's understanding, who's listening. But it was very clearly coming out that the younger generation, part of them are still willing to listen. And the impetus is on us to bring out a solution which is scientifically rooted, culturally rooted, and then manage together in a modern technology. With this, I'd like to conclude the session, and thanks for all for being a wonderful audience. Thank you. We're taking a picture.